When America wants to know what's happening in the Caribbean diaspora, there is one clear choice.
Hello, welcome to Carib Nation.
Both people inside and outside are very excited about today's program.
Looking at you, I can tell that you have traveled the journey.
One television organization brings America close to the people, stories, and events that affects Caribbean life.
It speaks to one of my pet peeves, and that is one of the problems I found over the years, the lack of detailed record keeping in the Caribbean. And I applaud you for undertaking this task.
Thank you very much, Betty.
Tell me, how did you get to this point? I know you didn't start out hoping to do this, but tell us how you got to the point of the book.
Well, it was out of frustration, in all honesty. As you mentioned, I'm a filmmaker back home, and I was doing research for a project. I was trying to find out who was the Calypsonian who would make it to the finals, the national finals, on a consistent basis. Now, the only way to find that out is to check the entire list. Unfortunately, I could only find, in the results, I could only find who won, who placed second or third. Fourth, fifth, and down the line, no dice.
They disappeared.
Disappeared, cast aside. So I decided to go after it because I really wanted to do this project. Starting to research it and you know, getting some help realizing that, okay, you know, starting to find these people, find the entire list and the songs and the stories around the competitions, because there's a whole lot of color and controversy. Yeah. And so I started to get more and more interested, and I started to go way further back than I expected. And eventually, when I looked at the volume of stuff that I had, I thought, you know, well, probably I can do a book.
Had
to document it.
And the next person wouldn't have to work as hard as you did.
Because, right, exactly. What I realized also was that it wasn't only in the Calypso competition. It was in the Soca, it was in the Chutney, it was in you know, across the board. We have this tendency to just focus on who won this competition, as though the others didn't have anything to contribute. And as somebody mentioned, and it's quite true, when you get to competitions, sometimes the winner is not necessarily the best song. True. You understand? So we cast aside all this good stuff, and we churn out volumes and volumes of data every year, and we just cast aside.
And it's not analyzed.
It's not, you know, it's not in any way you can go and just pull it up and look at and see who, you know, what somebody did. So I decided, you know, let me just do this. So it's a bit self-serve in the book, because I myself, now it's
you
published,
have the information.
I can go here. Many times I've been to this book to, you know, to get information.
Right,
so,
right.
You know.
Well, that's you managed to get two things in one there. It's just great. But it speaks to an issue across the Caribbean in almost every sector.
Yes.
Over the years in doing programs, I have found that it's difficult to find data, statistical information on anything, health information, agriculture, whatever.
Right.
And it is something that we have to work at, because we depend on the oral tradition.
Exactly.
And that's fine,
that's
but
fine.
we need to document.
Because of that, our history is muddy. Across the board.
Exactly.
You know, it's muddy. You don't know who did what when. You hear about 5 different names claiming, you know, and so
and the
really,
arguments go on
arguments
forever.
continue, and there's no data to go and say, well, all right, you're saying this, let's go somewhere and prove whether you're right or you're wrong.
Exactly.
And we as a people, we need to start documenting these things, and very, very carefully documenting it, because we are also impatient.
Yes.
You know, because doing research like this, or any kind of research, will take some patience, some diligence. So you need to sit down. If it takes you 3-4 years, this book took me 3 years.
Wow.
It's going to take you some time to get it right. Because at the end of the day, when you put it in this form and you're telling people, well, look, here it is, here's the information, you need to give these people the satisfaction that when they open this thing and they refer to it and they talk about it, they're talking about something that's true.
And you know, substantive.
Exactly,
yeah.
exactly. So which is what I was very, very careful to not, you know, I was pointed to a lot of different people when I was chasing the information, because, you know, I had to go to a lot of different sources, some written, some verbal. And when I get to somebody who would say, you know, I think this person did so and so, I'm not too sure, but I'm almost sure. You know, I don't want to go with that. You know, you really want to get to the
source.
Yes, and you really want to get the correct information before you put it inside here and say, well, all right, here, you know, Mr. Public, Miss Public, you know, here it is.
Right. One of the things you mentioned also in the book is that there are so many people who are really experts in the field because they have followed doggedly these competitions. Passionately. They know every competitor. They know all the songs. They can tell you about the nuances. But their information is nowhere but here.
Well, some of them, slight correction on that, some of them that I have had the opportunity of meeting, they actually had tapes and stuff from way back. Problem with them is that they're trying to get it in any kind of formal way with the help of the bodies, the governing bodies or whatever. That's where their stumbling blocks lie. And so they have their own personal archives there. The problem with that is when they pass on, this information goes nowhere.
And that is what somebody who understands.
Exactly. And if you go through, you know, there's a long acknowledgement page in there. And some of the names in there, these people have their own personal private archives in their homes. You can go to their homes, but what happens after they're gone? I know of a couple of instances where people, you know, were authorities on this thing. You know, they left us and the information, this one took it, that one took it, and it's nowhere, and we're still suffering for that.
Let's go back to, I think you said 1939?
1939 was the first official national Calypso competition in Trinidad and Tobago.
And that has evolved over years. It started out as a long, drawn-out process, and we've now cut it down to about a third.
Well, it started out in 1939. There were about five finalists. We have gotten up in the Calypso, because you have to look at this book deals with the Calypso finals and the Soca. Right. Soca started in 1993, and in the Soca, the first Soca competition, we had 30 competitors, and we kept that going until about 3 years ago or so, 2 years ago, when they brought it down to like 11. So you really have the 11 best. But this book will give you every single finalist from 1939 in the Calypso competition, every single finalist. And up to 2006, because the book was published in time for Trinidad and Tobago Carnival. In the Soca, we come from 1993 to 2006, and again, you have every single finalist and the songs as far as I could get them.
For the benefit of those who do not understand the difference between Calypso, Soca, slow Soca, break it down for us and help us to understand how these competitions are judged. Right. What are the criteria?
Right. Okay. Well, Calypso has always been a more topical kind of thing. No, there's in the past there had been the party side of Calypso, but Calypso has always been a topical thing. Something happens in the country or in the world, it's a commentary on it. That carried Calypso. You can actually trace our nation's or any nation's history, political, social, whatever, through Calypso. Soca came around through, we're giving Shorty, Lord Shorty. He is the acknowledged father of Soca, and he didn't like the direction that the country was going racially, and he decided to fuse the Trinidad African rhythm with East Indian rhythm, and came up with this thing he called Soca. But Soca is now a party-oriented kind of music. The emphasis
lyrics don't have to mean
lyrics,
anything.
And if you go through the book, there is a document here telling you that lyrics not important.
Right.
You know, it's really more a party thing. When you're judging the Calypso, I don't have the criteria in my head, but you judge rendition, you judge tone, melody, lyrics. Lyrics are very, very important in the Calypso competition. Although judging the Soca Monarch, the lyrics is also a category, but there are other things, you know, more important than that. And now we have the groovy Soca Monarch competition.
That's the modern.
Yes, some people felt that Soca was getting too fast, and we were losing the sweetness of Soca. If you go back to the original Soca with the earlier exponents of the art form, so it started to go really fast, and this groovy Soca thing came in. So it's slower, it's sweeter, it's sexier. You know, you can groove.
You can
actually just, it's not, you can just do a little groove.
You don't have to be literally bobbing up and down.
Exactly. For me, one of the sweetest groovy Soca songs was Show in Winchester in 2006 when he did Don't Stop. And I, as a judge of that competition, I sat and I looked out at the audience, and not one soul was standing still. Everybody was doing,
really,
and I still grooved to Don't Stop. So this I love that competition. So we have the Soca, the power Soca, groovy Soca, and Calypso still existing.
Now, when you get to now this all carries on throughout Carnival, and I think Trinidad is probably unique in that it's the only one that has all these segments or categories, so to speak, because most of the others have one or the other. Just before the actual parade, your final Carnival days, that's when you have this competition. And talk about the build up to that.
Right.
And some of what is required, because I understand from what I read that some of the songs have to have been played on the radio. They have to be current and not something that somebody made up and brought back from.
You cannot sing a song. You cannot sing a song from a previous season as long as it was entered in the competition from the previous season. You cannot enter that.
It has to be a new creation.
It has to be new to this. We had an issue this year with Crow 2007. With Crow, he did a song about not telling anybody where he's going when he's traveling.
When he's traveling,
Some of his colleagues complained that was an old song and they wanted him thrown out. He actually won the competition. He proved that it was not a song that he did before. It was probably written a long time ago, but it was not performed in competition. So you cannot perform a song that you perform in competition in any way for the finals. Now, what happens for the Soca, they've dubbed Friday, which happens the Friday before Carnival. They've dubbed that Friday Fantastic Friday.
Right.
That's the so, but there's a build-up. There's the prelims and the semis, weeks before, and then you have the big push with the cream of the crop on Fantastic Friday. With the Calypso competition, what they do, they go to the Calypso tents and they do the preliminary judging. Those who are not affiliated with a tent, there's the unattached competition that they have some people sing for the judges privately. And then you make it to the semifinals, which is called the Calypso Fiesta. And we have about 30-something in the semifinal. But it's a fun day because it's held down in the south of Trinidad and Tobago, Skinner Park. And people come out there, they bring their baskets with their drink.
It's a whole day affair.
It's a whole day. It's a whole day affair, and thousands of people fill the Skinner Park stadium down there. And from there, you select the finalists. Now, we had an issue this year. Last year, there was a complaint that the Calypso competition was dying, it's getting boring, and all of that. The solution to that this year was to have them sing one song. Sing them one song, and I think they had 14 or 15 finalists this year. My follow-up to this book will give you all that information. But they had the 14 or 15, and they did one song. And actually, there was a whole lot of talk about whether it's good or bad or backward or forward. At the end of the day, we had the finals and we had a winner, and all was forgotten.
Everybody was happy
at the end of the day. So it's a nice build up with all the other things that happened during the carnival season. In Trinidad and Tobago, our carnival season kind of unofficially kicks off the day after after Christmas.
That's right.
Boxing Day, we start in earnest. But then you have all the band launches and everything starting from October, November coming in. So we have a long season of a build-up that explodes on Carnival Monday and Tuesday. And then we cool down with another explosion on the beaches on Ash Wednesday. And then we take a little break.
Before you start with the next
Before
one
we start about 2 weeks later.
You said something that really shows why your book is so necessary, and that is to have the documentation, for instance, that you said, to show that that song that Coco had written had been done before.
Right.
You have to have had somewhere to go. The judges had to have had somewhere to go to prove that that had not been entered in the competition before. Where did they go? Well, apart from the newspapers, who kept what records?
Well,
where?
one of the on that particular issue, the complaint was not made until the finals were over. So it was, I think the people, the Calypso organization there was saying, bring your proof. If you're saying this, we don't have any proof of that. You're complaining that he did the song before. Bring your proof. But apart from that, there's a whole lot of records that you could probably go to, like his CD or record or whatever, to see if he performed it. He himself, Crocro, said that yes, the song may have been written a little while ago, and I may have performed pieces of it some time ago, but I have never performed the song in a competition. And you have to prove to me now that I performed the song in a competition. And right now, he's still the winner. He's still the winner. So let's say that nobody came with proof that he did perform it before.
Right. Have you thought of how this could be used in schools?
Oh yes, actually, and I've actually been guided in that way. When I was doing the book, my printer kept saying to me, when I was going to him and he kept saying, this will be good in schools, and I heard that from a lot of different people. What is happening in Trinidad and Tobago now is that the government is placing more emphasis on culture in the curriculum, having the secondary school kids work Calypso, mass, everything into the culture. So. And I can say proudly that the government of Trinidad, the Ministry of Education, has purchased quite a number of these books for distribution to the schools. Yeah, and we really need to do that, because what I found is that the kids today don't have a connection with what went on before. So you see them disrespecting something and enjoying another thing and don't understand the connection. Yeah. But there's an effort now to have them understand who was lying, who was that one, and the music and why and everything like that.
Yeah, because that's another thing that I think at the recent conference in the Caribbean, my Prime Minister, Mr. Arthur, talked about the importation of culture.
Right.
And the impact that importation has had on diluting our own culture in the Caribbean. And unless we work hard enough at solidifying that base, we will have a generation that's totally disconnected from our culture.
Exactly.
If we hope to carry it on, that's not the way to do it.
Exactly. You see a lack of appreciation for some of the really, really good works that went on before from the youth. And what I found with some of the young people coming up trying to do soca, especially with the groovy soca, some of them don't understand where soca came from. And you find that some of the soca is more R&B. The song style and the music is more R&B. That's exactly. Yeah. And a lot of it too is maybe if I sing R&B, I might get on some chart in America.
Exactly.
You understand? So there's a lot of work to be done to educate the youth, and there's actually some organizations in Trinidad and Tobago now that are doing that are having little workshops for the juniors that are coming up, let them understand what's going on. So when you go and you perform, you have some kind of frame of reference to go back.
Taking it to the next level, what about the universities?
Yeah, the universities. Well, I know that the University of Trinidad, there's a new university in Trinidad called the University of Trinidad and Tobago, and there is a program on. Chalk-Dust is involved in that. Chalk-Dust and the same Ray Fung that I just mentioned, they've made them fellows. So there is a program there. The University of the West Indies, there are programs, but I don't think there are specific programs for culture. But this University of Trinidad and Tobago is placing emphasis on culture, on carnival arts, on a wide basis. So there is some encouragement. There are things in the works, and hopefully we can really carry them forward. And in 3, 4, 5 years, we have something really substantial to go by, and people can go in there and get a degree in carnival arts or something like that.
What was the most difficult part of putting this together for you?
The most difficult part was ensuring that I had every finalist. Because actually, one of the hardest things is getting the songs. Because you might get who's there.
The names, but
right? And this is why this book is it's boiled down to just Calypso and Soca. I wanted to put 6 competitions in here. At the end of the day, my intention was to have everybody who had taken part in the finals of a national competition, the finals. Everybody would have been in here. Unfortunately, at the beginning of Calypso, there were like 2 or 3 songs in the earlies that I couldn't get. Some of them not documented at all, not recorded. They're not recorded. The artist is no longer with us. And so nobody knows about the song. So that was probably the hardest thing. I'm still trying to see if I can get the songs. I think that was the biggest thing, finding all the songs. Getting all the finalists was also a challenge, but I was still able to get every finalist that was here. And then because initially I wanted to name this book the Final Placing. So I wanted to give all the placings, and I wanted to give the points and everything to make the book really, really complete.
A real statistical,
But you're dealing with a lack of documentation. So I found all the finals, but I couldn't find in some instances where somebody placed. So if you go down, because I have in the appendix, I have a list of every finalist his or her rap sheet, as I would call it. So you'd find every place that this person had over the years in the competition. And if you really go through, you would see in certain places I just list finalists, as in Gypsy on page 127. While he was third in this is the Soca Monarch competition. He was third in 1993, but in 1994, and 1994 is just right there. Problem with this is that I spoke with Gypsy. Gypsy is still alive, he's young enough or whatever. He himself couldn't remember. There are no records. You understand? And in some instances, you find somebody who might have the record, but they have the record like this. And they're like, this is mine, you're not going to get it. There's a few instances of that. So, but generally, that was the problem. The problem was getting everybody in there and taking my time and making sure that it's in there.
I suppose that another project would be Panorama.
Well, yes, that was I wanted to do.
That's something that interests me particularly.
And you're not the first person to mention that to me, and I intend to do it. But I have to say that there is a book out, and I don't mind giving him a plug. Gideon Maxim in Trinidad and Tobago, he did a book on the Panorama competition. So that's out there, but I want to do one of my own in my own way. I want to do it in this format, and but that's coming. That's coming.
And so, you said that you're working on some other stuff. Is there going to be a part 2 to this?
Well, because of the nature of the material, as long as we continue to have Calypso competitions in Trinidad and Tobago, it's going to be the need to update this. And I'm chasing right now I'm working on the junior competition, because we have like 1 million Calypso competitions in Trinidad and Tobago. And when you look at the juniors are making such they're doing so much good work. When you hear the juniors, Marshall Montana came out of that, but not Marshall alone, Destra Garcia, people like that. And I can call, there's a couple of names inside here. This girl who was 4th in the national finals this year, Maria Bola, a young person who has come out and really making her mark. So when you look back at some of these people, Lima Calbio, and I can call a lot of names who
this is the time
started.
To start.
And we see a lot of them jumping up on the Soca stage right now, and but A lot of people don't know that they started singing genuine Calypso in the junior Calypso Monarch competition. Now we have the junior Soca Monarch competition also, which started in 2000, but the junior Calypso competition goes back to 1976, and there's a lot of them who came out of there,
right?
And the winners and everything like that. So I want to do that. I want to go back and do the juniors, and then about a couple of years later do the follow-up to the seniors, and keep going.
Well, you said that you've got the blessing of the government of Trinidad and Tobago, and you got help from a number of veterans. What have they felt? What are the people who have given you some of this information, who've been in this field doing these competitions for years, how have they responded to it?
They were totally receptive to the idea to begin with. Just because, as I think I mentioned in the book here, I know I mentioned in the book here that Sprangalang had tried, Sprangalang the comedian, had tried, and cultural, I don't want to boil him down to a comedian, but he had tried to do something like this, got somewhere and, got stuck. He worked on this with me, and he was so enthusiastic about the project. Everybody who helped me was so enthusiastic about getting it. Some of my friends, I have this one friend who was walking around with my blank sheets just to fill in the blocks because he had, he could speak to the Calypsonians and everything, and he was walking around getting the information from me. The reception was really, really, really positive, totally positive with everybody who helped out.
Excellent. Well, congratulations once again, and continued success in keeping the documentation going.
But I want to mention before we end that the book, I did a website for the book.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, there's a website for the book, and it's www.trinbagofinalists.com.
Trinbagofinalists.com.
Right,
and the book is called
plural.
The Finalists. That's the book by John Barry. So thanks for joining us on Carib Nation.
Thank you, Darius. Thanks for having me.
And thanks to you for joining us on Carib Nation. Until next time, I'm Darius Dean.